Alright, so Ubisoft is in a bit of trouble right now, or should I say that they are a little bit fearful. Um, for those of you who don't know, Ubisoft is in the midst of a hostile takeover. And for those of you who do not know what a hostile takeover is, a hostile takeover is what a man does to his wife after she tells him that she has a headache. It's trying to take something by force that doesn't belong to you. Now, what do I mean when I say that? I mean that Ubisoft controls what Ubisoft does right now. But if Vivendi was able to perform this hostile takeover, they would own the majority of the stock in the company and have pretty much controlling interest of what goes on in the company. Now, what is the purpose of a hostile takeover? Well, there can be many things. The worst possible outcome for us as consumers, if this were to go through, is that Vivendi decides to liquidate the company and just close everything down and just sell everything off to the highest bidder so that they can get all the money. Now, thankfully, I do not think that this is the case. I believe that they want to just get back into the games industry and have a large control over it without actually having to build their own studios. You see, Vivendi used to have a large share over Activision, but instead sold off their shares of Activision back to the company for $1.1 billion. Now, given that they just recently did this, I'm guessing that the only reason they did that was because they didn't like the fact that they didn't have the majority say in the Activision company, and they weren't about to have it. So the best thing for them would be to liquidate their assets there and try to buy up a game studio somewhere else. So here we come Ubisoft. Now, as you all know, Ubisoft is a big company, and they already have successful franchises, the Far Cry and the Assassin's Creed. Drive Club, you can maybe, if you want to call it that, you can call that a successful franchise. Now, I've said in the past that why would I take the time and waste so much money trying to prove my own product when I can go buy someone else's and leech off their success? And this is where we stand here with Ubisoft and Vivendi. Because a lot of people are saying that Vivendi should just go create their own studio with their own IPs and shit. But that's hard because a lot of new IPs fail. Why do that when you can go take over Ubisoft and take the company in a direction that you wanted it to be in? You're literally saving yourself time, money, and a lot of hassle. So, how does one go about doing a hostile takeover? Well, as I said before, you can buy majority stock in the company. That's the most straightforward method. But there is also another method where Vivendi owns currently a good amount of Ubisoft and Gameloft shares. So they can strong arm themselves into placing people within their companies that favor Vivendi. Now, this is more of a long term game where they would place those people in the company and try to have them go up to key positions and then do a hostile takeover that way from the inside out. Now, for those of you who are thinking that this sounds like some Jason Bourne, James Bond type spy shit, well, it happens all the time. People will put moles in companies to get information. How to compete is how companies tend to compete with each other by displaying similar products. One person infiltrates the company, gains a little bit of information, and they feed off each other. The spy game is real in more than just movies and, well, politics. One might say that business is politics just on a greedier level. And given how many corrupt politicians are being bought out nowadays, maybe it is one and the same after all. So, where does that leave us as the consumers for Vivendi taking over Ubisoft? That's hard to say. I would think that it wouldn't really change much as it may impact how much DLC we may get for quite a bit of time. My real concern though is that how the companies on the outside of Ubisoft, the companies that aren't really seen as really profitable, how they will be handled if Vivendi takes over. Because right now Ubisoft has a plan. And I don't know what that plan is, but I'd imagine that they are still trying to build new IPs and trying to get things off the ground floor. The problem here is that if Vivendi takes over, they may see these companies as unnecessary and begin a large amount of corporate layoffs. For those of you who don't know, Ubisoft hires a large amount of people. So Can you imagine what would happen if Vivendi were to take over Ubisoft and suddenly decide that all these outskirt studios weren't necessary anymore? That may lead to the disposal or firing of up to hundreds to maybe 1,000 jobs. And that scares me because the less people working in the game industry means the less games that will be made, the less games that are in production, and the less that I have to look forward to in the coming years. And I don't like that. Now, they say that some things are wrong with changing the status quo, but in some cases, you might have to go with the old saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix that.